Kathie, thanks for joining. How are you?
I'm great, Gabe. How are you?
Yeah, well, I'm okay. The question is, how are you? Where do you find yourself today in this beautiful Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon?
Well, Gabe, it's so great to be with you. And my day is very different than what I thought it would be when we first talked about it. I'm actually in the midst of a move. The movers are right next to me. I have nothing on the walls behind me anymore. And as soon as you and I are done, they come and move all my office furniture out, and I'm out of here. So
We
in
were sort of,
Marin County, California
that's the,
today until today.
I love it, but that's the world we live in now, right? We were
That's the
actually
world.
originally going to get Kathie, in a hotel as she was traveling and stuff, but
Yep.
she's now got a fake move. She's got a move in the background, and she's ready to move it all out. So,
But I'm so
well,
happy to
again,
be here with you
yeah,
today,
really
Gabe. So
appreciate
thanks
it,
for
Kathie.
asking me.
And if you haven't already, to the audience, we're streaming on so many different platforms, but wherever you are, YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn Live, would love to know where you're coming from. Throw it in the comments. It would be fun to kind of share that with us. So, Kathie and I do go interesting kind of way back, but her career has been phenomenal. And Kathie, I got to hand it to you. Obviously, some really big names in there. Salesforce, being very large, Sitecore, wow, being the CMO there. We actually crossed paths at Talkdesk, and the meteoric rise that she did in revenue, I won't share that. The Forbes Cloud 100, I think you went from 66 to top 10 multiple
To
times.
seven.
Was it
Yes.
7? Yeah, you guys,
In 3 years.
amazing run there. Launched multiple SaaS products. Has done a lot in now advising Vidozo, Vidozo, right?
And
Punt,
Punt.
I think.
Vidozo and Punt.
Some great companies, right? I think just a mix of all of this AI conversation. And so she's been a mentor to me. I thought it'd be fun to have her on and talk just a little bit about this idea of operationalizing AI. So many of us, it's obviously a little bit of a theory. She's seeing it real time. She's participating it, having been the CMO of so many companies. So again, Kathie, excited to jump into the conversation today. So maybe let's start at the top. I do just want to get your big picture thought process real quick here before we dive into some of these core questions. Like, how do you shape the market? How do you talk to people about what's going on specifically as it's involving marketing?
Gosh, how do I do a lot of listening, Gabe, a lot of conversations with lots of people. I love meeting with these founders, CEOs, Ronnie Coleman from Punt and Shrad Verma from Vidoso, like just learning from these founders. It's so incredible. Attending sessions like this, Gabe, is huge. But lots of conversations. I'm in an AI CMO group, which I really appreciate being a part of. So lots of things. We all have to listen.
And
A
well, and
lot
I
is
think
changing every day.
yeah, so much learning going on. You're seeing a lot of companies start to jump in and obviously want to participate in this movement, and I think they probably should. You've used these words kind of testing to nesting. Can you explain a little bit what that means as we kind of think about
Yes.
practicality in AI?
Absolutely. I started using this phrase back in January. I spoke in an executive dinner at the National Retail Federation in New York City.
Always a good
And
one. Good old NRF. Yeah, I
it's
love it.
always a
Yeah,
good
always a
one.
good
Been
one.
going there for many, many years. It's fantastic. But I really wanted to help cement this idea that as marketers, we need to move beyond just the testing phase, which was important, right? It was testing the tools out there. It was testing the functionality and the tools we already had that had added AI and really nesting it into what we do. So think about, how do we build it into our strategy and plans? How do we make it part of how we operate? So how do we bring it into, our plans, as I stated, our OKRs? How do we add awards to it? How do we make it a thought
I love
process
that.
for everything we do every day? I think fundamentally, I wanted to think about, how do we move away from AI as a weekend job, a
Yeah.
side project? Like, marketers are so busy all the time. And instead, how do we make it just part of our job?
Yeah.
It's our job. It's not a tiger team. It's not a weekend job. It's our job.
I love that because, well, and look, it is kind of testing to nesting because so there have been phases, and there was a time I think where we were just playing around with it, where it
Yes.
was maybe a sidekick. I love the tiger team concept. But to your point, it feels like it's gotten so real that it is time now, if you haven't already. And that might be one of the key takeaways from this session. If you haven't already, grab the tiger by the tail, no pun intended, and see if you can really get this nested into some of your processes. I would be interested to hear how you've kind of made that shift, or coached or seen organizations make that shift. You use this
Sure.
concept of certainly OKRs, but you and I talked about this idea of a Project 30. What
Yes.
was it? How did it come about? How did you start
Sure.
to play with this nesting idea?
Sure. Well, to be fair, I will tell you, I started with tiger teams, right?
We all did. No, we
Absolutely.
all, yeah, for sure, right? We all did.
And and I was like, this isn't working. I
Yeah.
want to leapfrog. So much is happening so fast. So in December of last year, I started an initiative called Project 30 because I wanted to really, again, cement this. I wanted to nest it into everything we do.
Yeah.
And Project 30 was the initiative for marketing around how do we impact the business by 30%? How do we
Mhm.
improve pipeline? How do we decrease costs? How do we improve effectiveness or
Wow.
efficiency by 30%? And so I gave every L3, so every direct of my directs, got a target and a plan that they built. So think about
Wow. Whoa.
giving that accountability to every individual, but looking for that team impact, right,
Wow.
across the board. And I found that by giving it an initiative, giving it a name that, by the way, had a phased rollout plan of three
Mm.
phases, had objectives tied to it, was built into everyone's OKRs. Everyone reported out against it in every QBR. We reported out against it every month to the board in a master deck that the company did across all departments. Like it actually gave something tangible to people. What are you doing for Project 30? What have you impacted? Have you reached your targets yet?
Wow.
So really moving from a tiger team, which was a little bit amorphous, to
Yes.
a very concrete initiative called Project 30.
Yeah, let's just unpack that a little bit, because that is such a, I think so many of us are starting to go through that evolution, the Tiger team to kind of this concept of Project 30. So you obviously gave it a name. That sounds like that, like that was a fairly important part of it. But with that, you actually went to each of your leaders and embedded it into the OKRs. With that
Mhm.
part of the process, it was very specific then to the functional area. So for example, it might have been 30% more efficiency here, it might have been 30% more pipeline there, here it might have been something else, but it was fairly tailored to each of those L3. Did I get that correct?
You got that absolutely correctly. And Gabe, a lot of people have asked me, why did you pick 30? Because I didn't have an initiative or a target from the board yet. But in my head, I was thinking, my gosh, the board's going to ask me pretty soon for this. Let me be in front of this.
Yeah.
And I picked 30 because doesn't 10 and 20% sound too small? And so much was unknown
You
that
beat me to the
was
punch.
50% too much. I think if I were to do it today, the percentage might be different.
Oh,
But back in
interesting.
December of last year, 30 was the number I picked.
Well, I like to your point. That is one of those, like, not too hot, not too cold. It's like, I don't know, 50 feels like a lot, 10% feels like that's not worth it. 30's just right. The old Goldilocks and the Three Bears. That's funny. I
Exactly.
was going to ask you where
Exactly.
30 came from, but it sounds like you wanted to
Mhm.
beat the board on up to their plan there. So you did do specific to the individual functional areas, and
Mhm.
then maybe just one more double click on that. I mean, I think so many of us are getting ChatGPT and throwing it over, and then assigning a tiger team and saying figure something out. But
Mhm.
there was, like, it was then embedded in the whatever V2 Mom OKR, something where there was expected readouts, accountability to
Yes.
hold to this obviously objective that you basically gave each person, as if it were an OKR like anything else.
Absolutely. So, yes, every L3 had a target. It was part of their OKRs. They reported out against it in every QBR. So, there was a
Wow.
particular section in every QBR report where they had to give an update.
Yeah.
I write a note every week to my team called Top of Mind. I talked
Mm,
about it every week.
yeah.
We turned our monthly marketing learning session into AI learning. We
Mm,
brought in an AI consultant. I heard Sanjan talk earlier. That's super important, right?
interesting.
Because so much around it is Gabe, I have this philosophy that I want people to do the best work of their careers when working with me. And to
Yeah.
do that, we have to help upskill and train and help people learn and give a space for that.
Yeah.
So I even created a framework on what's the perfect day for a marketer at every skill level, manager, director,
Oh,
IC, and how much time should you try to carve out for that learning? Because again, this shouldn't be a weekend job. This should be part of our job.
yeah. How
So
do you
yes, completely embedded and nested into everything we do.
Yeah. What was the reaction of the team? Was there a few things you'd highlight that feedback or surprise or even aha moments, where they were like, hey, this 20-minute chunk, I love the, taking a minute each day and seeing if you can set it aside so that it feels like it's not kind of an add-on. It is part of your, but
Right.
reactions from the team on this, were they bugged? Did they
Yeah.
liked it? What was the reaction there?
Really, I will be honest, mixed, right? And I think Sanjay and Dave alluded to this a little bit. Like, luckily, people were really open with me. Some people were really scared. They were scared about, will this replace me? They were scared about, what if I can't do it? Right? So
Mm,
that fear really came in two ways. So really important to be in front of that. And I believe this wholeheartedly, that I was helping people learn, be better marketers for the future,
yeah,
right? Because every marketer needs to understand AI. So there was absolutely that fear factor.
I love that.
That was
I
part
love
of
that.
it. Part of it was like this excitement, like, oh, we get to go play, we get to go try different things, we get to share our results. We had a Teams channel on where people were sharing what they were learning. I always do an extended marketing leadership team, which is the directs of the directs, and we would get together every other week and they'd be sharing what are they
Mm,
learning,
mm.
right? So it became this team initiative on, hey, we're not going to be perfect, we're going to learn along the way. So there was fear and there was
And there
excitement.
was both the excitement. How do you? The fear thing has come up now for me in multiple conversations. Like people want, I think, to move from test to nest, as you kind of say, but there is a little bit of pushback, or there's a little nervousness,
Mhm,
around people losing their jobs or AI replacing them. You don't know what you
mhm,
don't know, and sounds like you were able
mhm.
to find that balance of, hey, let's create it. Is there a communication thing that you kind of initially set the table on? How did you overcome that fear thing? I'm hearing that more.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things. One piece was in the Project 30, which I hadn't shared yet, Gabe, there were three phases, right?
Yeah.
So phase one was testing and training. Of course, that continues. Phase two was really drinking our own champagne, like helping work with product to design, build AI into our solutions. We sold to marketers and then using those solutions. And then third was building an agent organization. And
Oh,
one of the
cool.
things that was really important to
Cool.
me is I had 81 marketers. So I actually was talking about, we're going to have 81 marketers and 40 agents. Right. That's what I talked about with the team, to
Cool.
make it very tangible that my target was not to replace the individuals, but to
Mm,
actually identify and build agents around the jobs to be done. And by the way, people were involved in selecting those agents, right?
cool.
That
Cool.
will be built.
Yeah.
And so every chart showed we're going to be an organization with 81 humans and 40 agents. So that was
Yeah.
one piece, like
I
making
like
it visual to them.
Yep.
And then secondly was just addressing it heads on. You're
Yeah.
afraid, let's talk about that. Right? My objective is not to replace you. My objective is to change the way you work
Mm.
and give you more time. Because Gabe, you and I have been in marketing for a while. Like, does any marketer say, I don't have enough to do?
I know it's like I can always,
Never.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, you kind of set this precedent though. Like, hey, I want to turn you into a supermarket, the old Iron Man analogy. Like, I'm here to. Sounds
Yes.
like you were able to establish that fairly early, but with some open dialogue around that as well. I love the org chart concept. Yeah, it's like. And Dave talked a little bit about that in his keynote. The org chart's changing.
Mhm.
There is going to be humans, and there is going to be agents. And there's probably going to be some
Yes.
agents that are more autonomous, probably doing some of their own stuff and not just
Yes.
a co-pilot helping you maybe in content or some areas in marketing. But visualizing that and just saying, this is our goal. The thing I like about you, and as we even prep for this session, so many people again throwing GPT out there and saying good luck, and then they're disappointed when the results are kind of like, I don't know, it didn't seem like it
Mm.
worked very well. But my guys, they're happy-ish, and maybe we're doing some better content, I think ish. But the very concrete things that you've kind of put in place, that org chart, 80, 40, OKRs, 30, project 30. It's just putting so much more of a name to this thing. And I think people have missed that so much. You hit this you did, this was kind of your initiative, and I think a lot of people, in some of the studies we've seen, leadership buy-in can be a challenge at times. How did
Mhm.
your leaders react? I mean, I assume they were super happy, but advice to others who maybe are looking to get more buy-in from some of the board or the leaders as they kick off maybe a Project 30 initiative.
Yeah, I think, Gabe, it's such a good question, and it depends so much upon who you're working with and how much
Yeah,
they're embracing of it, right? For me, it was probably a little bit different. We sold into the MarTech, we sold to
sure,
marketers, to CMOs. So
sure.
we wanted to lead from the front. We wanted
Mm,
to be a fast forward. But for others, I think it's a matter of start somewhere,
yeah.
right? And sometimes I don't know. There's a poet I really like called, you probably never thought we would talk poetry on this, but there's a poet I really like
I'm
called
open.
David
I'm
White.
open. I'm an open book.
And he has a poem starts that's framed, and I might get it kind of wrong, but start close in. And it's all about,
Mm,
start close in. Don't take the second step or the third step. Take the one that's closest to you, the one that's the hardest to take. So
yeah,
if you're getting that pushback, like find the small step, that first step you can take, and then show those results.
yeah,
I think
cool.
it's all about showing the beginning of the results. Like the first result we were able to tell was battle cards being created 75% faster. We went right to the heart of how do we, and I think her Sanjan talked about this a little bit too, around helping with revenue first, right? How do you help sales first,
Yeah.
right? Um, I always think about my marketing plans in three phases of what am I doing to feed the business, build the business, and create the future. And I
Mm,
would definitely say, think about feed the business first, which is that very short term. What are you doing this quarter to help sales?
yeah.
And have a win, and then get those champions internally, and then take the next step.
And
I
to kind of
think
go, yeah.
constantly time about it, but you have to start somewhere, and sometimes you have to start in stealth.
Yeah, yeah, and still, uh, well, you have to start. One more click. What do you? So you might just have to kind of. You might not have the buy-in. So find a small area to kind of win and get going on it because you can't wait forever. And then once you have
Right.
that, you can kind of build off it, right? Yeah, interesting. How
Find one
did?
thing that you own. And interestingly, Gabe, just Sanjan, no, Dave made this comment. I think that there was research out there that much of the funding is coming from people deprecating other tools. Like people are finding a way to fund it themselves. So
Yeah.
look at what you yourself own. Like if you can't get the buy-in from across the leadership team, look at something you yourself own.
Mm,
Find a way to fund it, and do something first, and then show the impact and get the support.
yeah, yeah. Because once you see that impact, like other big initiatives, there, so many people kind of move in that. You found it seems
Mhm.
like you found a pretty good balance with kind of short term and long term a little bit. I think so many people are getting stuck in one, not getting anything off the ground, and then a lot of them are in like the pilot fiasco.
Mm,
It is like they can't get out of the quick win area to get to something that's a little
mm.
bit meaningful. I don't know if you experience that a little bit in your world, but I'm sure you've seen it in other areas if you've coached others and been mentoring some of these companies. Thoughts on how being able to get to bigger impact items that came out in a couple of those studies, why they're failing. It's like they got maybe the content piece going, or they did find a little bit, but they couldn't then get to to
Right.
something that was like, I'm seeing a real drop in costs here, or I'm seeing a real jump in
Right.
revenue. Thoughts on kind of getting from the crawl to the walk to the run, and getting out of that pilot
Right.
purgatory?
Well, I would say first off, Gabe, like we do what we um designed to do and measure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why Project 30 for me had
But
a
you
all
set
one
it up
run.
with
It
kind
had
of,
a three phases, right? So we were communicating always, this is where we're starting, this is where we're going next, and this is where we're going later. Um,
hmm,
Having those clear objectives. I also, I don't know, I'm a big believer in three, like the harmonies of three, like
yeah.
also thinking about the feed, the build, and the create. Feed the business, build the business, and create the future. Like,
Hmm,
how do you do the things today so you have the short wins, but then make sure
yeah.
you're spending a percentage of your time in other pieces? I mean, Gabe, most marketers keep 10% of their budget for testing
For
things,
stuff
right?
anyway, right? Yeah.
So maybe you say to yourself, let me take that 10% of time of funding and let me look at those later stage
Mm,
pieces that I'm not expecting impact today
yep.
on,
Yep.
but expect future impact.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that you're right. 10%. We always have something lying around. You could probably find a way to bridge a little bit of that gap. Where do you think, and this might be a little technical, but you've seen kind of the whole gamut of stuff in AI, different projects and different places. You've experienced it yourself. If you were coaching a new marketer to kind of get going, is there a place where you would tell them to kind of start to get that stealth mode or get that crawl step nailed down? Because there are some quicker wins there. Any thoughts on where to start?
I believe, again, I think Sanjan or Dave mentioned this, but it has to start at the top. I remember for a while there were other folks out there who were saying they were letting their teams do it
Mm,
and they weren't necessarily leaning in. I
yeah,
think the leader needs to lean in. You need to show that you speak the language. You need to show that you're on that learning journey. And by the way, you also need to coach and teach all along the way.
yeah.
I think that's the very first step. Like, own this. If you yourself are carving out X number of hours a week for your own learning, like,
Mm,
go get learning if you don't have it. There are so many great resources out there. There are amazing marketing AI people, like, the Lisa Adams, Nicole Lefford. Like, there's so many.
yeah, I love
There
it.
are free classes out there that you can take. Like the AI Marketing Institute has an intro
Mm,
class. Helsinki University has the enablements of AI that's free, like course after course after course. There's this today, Gabe, this amazing program you put on. So I think, like, get the learning is the first step for sure. Um, and then create those communities around you where you can share and learn with others.
I love that. Yeah, the learning part, I think we're all looking forward. And to your point, that was the genesis of this. So we just had I think I told you a customer who said I wanted to go to one of these big events and the ticket price was too much and the fly I couldn't get there. But boy, I wish I could get great speakers on AI and continue that learning
Mm,
journey. Hopefully people are finding that beneficial. Maybe we can wrap just with a couple other things, Kathie, before we
sure.
let you go. If you had to kind of, a lot of us are starting the journey, but if you had to start over as a CMO and knowing what you know now, how is there principles or thoughts or advice you'd give to that kind of up and coming group? Like how would you do things different now that the AI
Mm.
is everywhere?
I would not do a tiger team is definitely the number one. I think that really makes people feel it's a weekend job. It's
Got
not
it.
their job. So I would really put an initiative in place that's tied to what are you trying to accomplish as a company
Yeah.
that has targets. I'd bring in your not only your leadership team, but the ones one level down, like the actual folks who need to help their teams as well. Like, bring them into that development, bring
Yeah.
them into that process. Brought them in to define the agents on the jobs to be done.
Mm,
Like, bring them in so that they feel ownership over it and have accountability.
yeah.
And then the third, I would just say, make sure you're highlighting your wins.
Mm,
I
yeah.
think sometimes we all don't do enough of that.
Yeah, yeah. We always try to get so much credibility and excitement externally. We forget there's a whole battle to be won internally, and you got to
Yes.
sometimes toot your own horn. But look, I found with that fear thing we talked about early, bringing the people
Mhm.
in early and having them participate. That's cool. Like what agents do you think? I'm obviously not going to shove these 40 down your throat, but
Right.
help me
Who
create
likes
that
that,
new roadmap.
Gabe?
Yeah,
Nobody likes that, right?
it's like you see,
I don't
you got
want
to
someone to do that to me.
You got to team up to make it all work. Cool. We'll get Kathie. Really appreciate you jumping on today. I know you've got to get the move is coming. Whether we like it or not, it's happening. If someone wanted to continue this dialogue or dive a little deeper into this idea of kind of testing and nesting, quick thoughts or where could they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn for sure. And maybe I can pop it in the chat as well. I
Yeah,
see it
we'll
there. But
make
please do
sure.
reach out. Would love to chat with folks for sure. This is a
Awesome.
really exciting time for market. I didn't tell you this yet, Gabe, but my eldest daughter just went into marketing. She's in her first
Oh
marketing job.
no, they're coming. Then okay, yes, here we go.
So this is really fun for me to see, how the world will continue in
Oh my
marketing, like how it will change as I've seen so much change over my career. So
Oh my
love to
heavens.
chat with
Yeah. Well,
people,
tell her
beginning
best
of their
of luck.
journey or later.
Tell her best of luck.
Awesome.
And again, appreciate it, Kathie.
I
Take
will. Thank you
take
so
care.
much, Gabe.